The festive season is a time for family and friends. It's also a time that people feel more alone than at any other time of the year for a variety of reasons. To find out some of these and about coping mechanisms, we are joined by clinical psychologist Mandy Rodriguez. Good evening and welcome to The Full View. Let's first start off here by defining anxiety.
So anxiety is when you feel it's a discomfort or anxious situation where there's a certain trigger that creates a negative reaction. And that negative reaction can be physical, or it can be the way you're thinking or the way you react.
Yeah.
So it's some negative reaction to a trigger.
And then when we speak about, for instance, the festive season, time for friends and family to celebrate, but there are many of those who are not celebrating because of, for instance, the loss of a loved one.
The thing is, the festive season is usually filled, it starts months before in the shops. Every newspaper you open, there's memories. Every shop you go to, you can't escape it. So I think it's the worst season of all to go through loss or grief, financial difficulties, because wherever you go, you're faced with the music and with happy families. So I think it is probably, instead of having the privacy to grieve or to experience your anniversary alone, it's made more public and more in your face, which is why people make
and
it.
what do you do when you're faced with such a situation? Because you can't stop the music from playing, you can't stop people from shopping, you can't have the TV off every day while you go through this period. What do you then do?
Look, I think there's something very important called a gratitude diary, and I'm not saying you need to write down something positive every day at all, but most people are focusing on something they can't control, which is a death or loss of a loved one. And if they can even just do one positive act a day, and I'm talking even just smiling on the phone when you're talking to someone, commenting on the cashier's lipstick that she's wearing for that day. There's something called fake it until you make it, and you fake it until you believe it. So if you start looking at more of the things you can maybe change, like in the excerpt we saw before, it does have an impact on your mood as well.
Yeah, so this would be for you. This is what I can do for myself. What about the people around me? The people who are also affected by my levels of anxiety or this moment of loneliness that I'm going through?
I think people around you, the worst they can say is get over it and not acknowledge it. Okay, allow the person to be sad, and allow them, if they don't want to experience the same family traditions as they did before, the mere fact that they're there, include them. It's the one time that you actually can't go and say, I'm not attending a baby shower because I've lost my child. Unfortunately, there are family traditions that we have to be around, and I think people need to acknowledge, accept, and listen. And just let the person be, don't fix it. And I think that's the big mistake we all have.
Yeah. Is that once the person opens up to you, has the conversation with you, you then automatically think that this means that I must respond in such a way that seems to help fix the problem.
Absolutely. And all people really want is to be acknowledged. You don't need to indulge the behavior, but you need to acknowledge and to listen. And the worst is to allow someone to be alone at this time. So I think you've got to have the comfort within yourself to say, I'm comfortable enough to allow this person to speak openly about their loss, and that's going to help more, just the mere fact that you're there and you're listening, than anything else you can do.
And early on you were speaking about, for instance, don't be calling people party poopers, for instance. They're going through something.
Yes.
Acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
And just listen.
And don't ignore it.
Yeah.
It's like the white elephant in the room. Don't ignore it. I mean, what people want is maybe just an acknowledgement, and for you to hear and to reflect back that emotion. The quickest way for someone to know that you're hearing them is to reflect back the emotion that you pick up on them. And that's what they want, is what we call warmth, empathy, and
yes.
honesty.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what to say, say that.
Yeah. And for a partner, because, when we speak about a partner, this is someone that you're with every day, for instance, whether it is someone that you're married to, someone that you're in a romantic relationship with. But because you're with this person almost every single day, most of your time, how do you then deal with these, what some would then call mood swings? That yesterday you were happy, or just an hour ago you were so happy, you agreed that we're going to go to this party, and now all of a sudden you are moping.
Well, I think, and that's a very important point with couples, is that's why we understand marital challenges happen over this time, is as the one is stronger, the other one is struggling, and it causes a phenomenon called independent coping, which is what we don't want, because that creates the challenge and creates a sense of independent coping. And again, acknowledging, affirming the emotion brings the person emotionally connected together to their partner. Otherwise, we're going to do this. And a good relationship is such that when the one is down, the other partner carries the person. How do you
start that conversation?
I think you start the conversation by saying, I'm not sure how to support you, but I'm here to listen. And I wish I could fix it for you. It's all about being honest in that moment, but with transparency and a genuineness. It means far more to say to someone, I don't know how to fix this, than to actually ignore it or say, I can't deal with this again. And sometimes just by hearing what somebody says, it deflects and it actually diffuses that situation in the moment.
And at which point do you, as someone who's an observer, who's witnessing these mood swings, anxieties, at which point do you then advise your friend, colleague, whatever, your partner, that I think you may need professional help?
I think when you see it's impacting on possibly relationships and on work and environment, you've got to understand that when somebody goes through a loss or some sort of trauma, there is a 6-month adjustment. And the first 6 weeks are acutely bad, and they're vacillating between shock and denial and anger and depression. And that's pretty appropriate. If it continues to the same intensity beyond that, then I think you need to recommend.
Is looking at alcohol consumption any way of gauging whether this person is struggling with these anxieties, with mental health?
I think so. I mean, any negative behavior, especially that wasn't there before, or that is exacerbated in that moment. Absolutely. And alcohol, unfortunately, is a depressant, so it's actually not going to help.
Well, thank you so much. It's a very important conversation. That was clinical psychologist Mandy Rodriguez.